Welcome, everyone. We'll begin in just about a minute or two. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to our district Welcome Back. Our Zoom link is filled up, but there are plenty of folks who are watching on the YouTube live stream, and we'll begin in just a moment.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're all here to kind of share in what's happening this year. I'm excited. I'm starting off the 2020-2021 school year. So I'm glad you're here. I would love to, of course, be doing this in person. So it'll be a little weird for me doing a webinar, but I think that we're all in this together and we're all kind of learning how to do this well. So welcome again. And I'm just going to launch right in and we'll talk about a few things and get on with the show. So first of all, wow, first of all, we're going to have a little bit of fun. Yeah, there we go. We're living in the land of masks, and it's been quite an adventure for the last several months. And we're going to launch into the school year learning all kinds of new things. We did start last year sometime in the springtime in the late March, and we all had to kind of turn on a dime and try out something new. I have a little short video here from a teacher who was working and learning how to do some of this stuff a little bit better for her students. So let's take a look. Oh my, mute your mics. Mute your mics. Hi guys. Hi. So excited to see you. Hi. Oh yeah, you have a dog. Yeah, she's so cute. Aw, hi puppy. Oh, you have a dog. Well, don't be careful with your, wow. You have a cat. Aw, everyone has pets to show. Awesome. You have a lizard. You have a snake. Nope. Out. Jordan, do you want to try and maybe like turn your camera up so that I'm not looking up your nose? No. You don't. This is kind of like my office. You don't need to see the rest of my house. Oh, you don't have to ask if you can go to the bathroom. You can just go. It's your house. But wash your hands. No, don't bring your computer into the bathroom. I don't. No one needs to see that. No. All right. Happy Wednesday. It's Thursday? Wow. Sorry, the days are kind of blended together here. Yes, I do see you have your pajamas on today. Cool. Oh, you have pajamas on too? Yeah, they're SpongeBob. Ooh, yeah, rainbow unicorn pajamas. Wow, everyone's yelling what their pajamas are. Okay, awesome. All right, I have a huge announcement. I'm so excited to share. Oh, you can't? Okay, well, my headphones are plugged in. You can't hear me, so hello? 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 Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? All right, so everybody sees this right here? What we're gonna do is, oh, it's backwards? Okay, so let's try it like this. Is that better? So that assignment is going to be on Google. Your mom has a question? No. You don't need to take me to your mom. It's no. We're in the okay. Hi, Mrs. Clark. Yeah. Do you think that we could talk later? Guys, we're not taking our time to talk about Minecraft right now. No, I do not play Minecraft. So no, on the Minecraft, let's talk about it later. Let's focus. No to Pokemon too. We're not talking about Pokemon right now. Right. So, can you, I'm literally teaching a class right now. Oh my, whoa! Hi guys, sorry about that. Yeah, no, this is my fancy office when everyone else is being so loud in my house. Talk about fractions during. Who is listening to Post Malone? So, like, is that necessary? Ow. So just apply what we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes or so and put that work. Oh, you just logged in, so you didn't hear any of that lesson there. Awesome. Okay, so I'll just go over that again. Yep. Mm-hmm. Wow, you guys are all talking at the same time. It's like we're actually in our classroom. I miss you guys. So last spring, many of you probably experienced some of those things, and you can just a little graph of the activity of Google Meet that we used during that time. As you can see, it shoot up and our daily activity happening, and lots of you practicing, learning new things, discovering maybe some stuff that you never thought you would have to consider ever before. It might have been time for you to clean that office that you've been meaning to get after, because all of a sudden people were going to be seeing your office space. And so it was time to find some like maybe a better viewpoint.
Then others of you, of course, just figured out maybe I should just do a virtual background rather than clean the office because that would be easier. For those of you who don't have an office, you created them. So it might have been on the hamper in the closet in the hallway. It could have been on top of some bath tissues or other kinds of things. I personally have stacked a lot of boxes, put them all together. And so I'm sure that many of you found creative ways to make the right kind of studio so you could deliver those and be involved in your Zoom meetings. Some of you also might have found that equipment that you thought was going to work out well to run your house router for your internet might not have been quite up to par. So you went digging through cables and tried to build something that would sort of work from your computer from 1984 or trying to connect your iPad to the TV. So I'm sure many of you found the cables you never even remember that you had. I know that I did, and tried to put some things together to make it work as well. We also learned a couple things about some of the animals we have. So during quarantine in the springtime, we learned that, of course, dogs could not be happier. They think quarantine is the greatest thing to happen ever. Cats, however, not so much. I like cats too, but you know, they do certainly get right into your kitchen if they want to. We learned how to wear a mask. And so we had got some instruction sometimes about covering our nose and mouth and not just making it into a chin guard. We also got to see people use this time to create masks that reflected indigenous culture or things that were important to them. We also saw sometimes that maybe people use their notoriety to try to sell a few more masks as well. We also discovered that we could actually find the end of all of the content in multiple content providers. So it was interesting for us to reach the end of Netflix or see everything that there was on Hulu or subscribe to a new service so we could watch all of that content as well. We've been watching schools across the country and across the world try to come back and be in some kind of a normalized setting for students of all ages. We have had literally thousands of vendors let us know that they have all the right things for us to clean the building, to be prepared safe. Thankfully, we know the few folks who we've been using before, but it's been very interesting to watch the cavalcade of folks coming forward with just the right solution for us. Sometimes, of course, those right solutions aren't necessarily the best solution. And you can see that sometimes the advertisements that come in make you chuckle or run away screaming. We've also struggled, of course, during this time because it's been a very big challenge for everyone to see either businesses close or our restaurants go, things that we have that are part of our daily routine, and we've had to change those routines, and that has been stressful for everyone. We have found that we don't have our parks and our walks the same way we had before. We have seen a huge uptick in social strife and in protests and in people wanting to see a better world for others. We've seen counter protests come in as well for those folks who would like to keep things the way they were before. And we're in the middle of a major upheaval, something that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm reminded of a quote from Frederick Douglass, of course, from many, many years ago that talked directly about these kinds of things. And sometimes when we hear and we see these things that are going on in the world, we assume that this is the first time that's happened if we haven't lived through some of those histories. But I wanted to just read this quote from Frederick Douglass. And he said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress." So, as we move forward, we know that many of the conversations among our neighbors and friends will heat up as we get toward an election cycle. And that's always a challenge for us. I know that we go through this each time there's an election in schools. And so we have to be very mindful. We will see and hear people hitting that panic button. And some of the things that we have been talking about are how do you have structured and nuanced conversations about things that are very challenging. People that they hold things very dearly to themselves, and how do you help have a conversation that is constructive and that can help get to what people's needs are and what they believe. We also know this creates an amazing amount of stress on our students. Some of the hand wringing we've done, of course, is about whether or not to bring students back in the building, to bring teachers back in the building, to bring staff back in the building. And it's really important for us to be mindful, especially in these next couple of weeks as we get to know our students, that there are many people who are living under significant stress, and that providing some grace and some patience for everyone, including your colleagues, including the other folks that you work with, and people around, being nice to someone at the gas station, all of those things are really going to matter as we move forward into this. Now, we have an incredible staff here. We've added new staff this year as well, and I'm fully confident that we can do this well. And I think much of it for all of us will be thinking about how we're going to process this for ourselves. And I know that for us, each person in this district is a leader. You're a leader in your community. You might be a leader in your church. You're a leader in your neighborhood. People look to you because you work at the school. And we have to try to step back and think about how we will deal with the tumult and the chaos. And so this quote from Sun Tzu from The Art of War speaks directly to that. And he said, "Confront chaos with discipline, treat tumult with calm. This is mastery of mind." And these are the kinds of things that we really need to work on for ourselves. I can tell you that we have been in all kinds of fun chaos. For those of you that were paying attention, you knew that we were working on all of our blueprints for re-entry. And then you knew that with each update to the guidelines, the rules changed. And so we would build a plan, and then we change the plan. And we build a plan, we change the plan. We build a plan, we hold the plan, we wait on the plan, and then we change the plan. So that happened over and over and over again. And we've been working very hard to try to get us to the place where we would know whether we'd be resuming in-person classes for all students. We were working on a hybrid plan for a combination of online and in-person. And we were also working on a comprehensive distance learning plan. And these were all happening sort of concurrently so we could be ready to go with whatever happened. We did focus heavily on hybrid, but we knew somehow that we need to be prepared about the comprehensive distance learning. Now, sometimes, of course, we got some help and we got some guidance. And I know that the guidance doesn't always feel like it's as helpful as possible. And so I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, but this feels a little bit like some of the conversations that we had when it came to guidance about how we were going to do hybrid, or how we were going to do blended learning, or how we were going to bring students back.
Oh, next step is to fold in the cheese.
What does that mean? What does fold in the cheese mean?
You fold it in.
I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
Dan, I cannot show you everything.
Okay, well, can you show me one thing?
Here's what you do. You just fold it in.
Okay, I don't know how to fold broken cheese like that.
And I don't know how to be any clearer. You take that thing that's in your hand, and you...
If you say fold in one more time.
It says fold it in.
This is your recipe. You fold in the cheese then.
Don't you dare.
You fold it in.
David!
So that's a little bit how it felt like in the springtime and continues some days as we get further guidance. So again, working on the blueprints for reentry, working on the blueprints for the different kinds of things that we were trying to get ready for staff and for students. As we prepared, we quickly realized, and then the guidance came out, and I'll talk a little bit about the metrics in a second, about we were going to be really starting at a comprehensive distance learning for all students, eventually trying to transition to a hybrid, and then eventually, of course, coming back to school as we have known it in the past. Some of the metrics that we have to use in order for us to determine whether it's safe for us to come back in the building. And there are two metrics. One of them is called the case rate metric. And the case rates must be at 10 or fewer cases per 100,000 in the county for 3 consecutive weeks. So as you can see in this bar graph, we are far above that. Yamhill County actually had been off the charts quite a bit more. But still, even in the students that we serve from Washington County and from Clackamas County, because our district covers all 3, we're far off of that metric. Additionally, there's something called a test positivity metric. And that metric says that we must be at 5% or lower in the county and the state for 3 consecutive weeks before we can come back in. And we're a little bit better on that, but you'll notice that we're not at 3 consecutive weeks. So anytime you have 1 week where it goes over, the counter starts at 0. So putting those 2 metrics together, that will tell us when we're able to come back into some form of either hybrid or full in-person learning. There are some exceptions to that, and we will be looking at some limited in-person instruction for certain areas, but that work is still yet to come, and we have quite a bit of operational things to figure out for doing it safely for staff and students. So the question we often get from everyone is, when will we return to normal? Is it going to be November, as we've heard some districts set the timeline for that? Will it be January? Will it be June? I'm just going to answer you with, we don't know. And I think it's really important for all of us to understand that we could be doing distance learning all the way through June. We could be done in January, and we could be done in November. But we have to plan ahead for understanding that we will come back into school. We just don't know when. That day will come again where we are back in front of students, working with them individually, working with them in person. But for now, we have to just be prepared that we could be in for a long haul and it could be short. But it's really, I think that for everyone, rather than trying to focus on a very short timeline for this, let's imagine that it will go for as long as we can. And then if it comes earlier in any of those other dates, then we will celebrate that moment when we come back together. All of this, of course, and this is true for all staff, of course, who have been here now. We have had staff working all summer. We've had folks volunteering time, putting things in, serving meals, looking at curriculum, trying to prepare your buildings, cleaning, reorganizing, and principals, of course, all summer long. So it's been a very, very heavy lift for everyone. Some of the big changes we've seen this year, we've gone from about 50 students in our K through 8 online academy program to a little over 400. And we're up over 200 in the high school and Catalyst, the high school Catalyst and COA program. So we have more than 600 students now who are part of the Catalyst COA operation. And that's been a big change for us. We're happy they're here with us in Newberg. And it also has caused us to make some changes along the way. So a lot of work happening over there. We've had thousands and thousands of questions, as you can imagine, and all of these things that we've been working on, everything from bus transportation to cleaning and everything in between. And there are, of course, 40,000 other things I could put on this list, but I tried to keep it down to some of the most important ones. So it's been very, very interesting to muddle through the new guidance as it changes to then come back and see how it affects each one of these items along the way. So what's next? Well, as I've talked about before, and you can kind of see from the few slides prior, our most important thing is to remember about the health and the safety of students and staff. We have been trusted with the safety and the education and the care of thousands of other people's children, something that could be no more precious to the people in our community. So we will be tracking, of course, the virus. We'll be tracking when it's safe to come back to school, and we'll be tracking all of the metrics along the way. We will keep you informed of those things as we know them, so nobody's in the dark. But we will not make any promises until we're ready to move ahead on what we need to move on. So we'll be focusing, as I said before, we're starting all with distance learning. I think everybody knows that. And then we will focus our efforts on when we can do some limited in-person instruction and some hybrid, and eventually coming back into the school buildings that we all love. During this time, and actually every time during the school year, this is something that I talked about last year about some guiding principles. And these were, of course, the words that we've heard a lot and we've used and that we need to continue to focus on. And those are access, equity, inclusion, opportunity, and understanding. So when we provide access for all students, and it could come in the form of hotspots and computers, but it's also in the form of accessing the curriculum, accessing the learning, accessing the physical space, accessing the virtual space. This is one of our core issues that we have to continue to keep an eye on, because we know that this is going to be very hard on families, very hard on staff, very hard on students. And so making sure that we focus on providing access to everything that we can, as well as we can, is going to be critical for us. The equity work in this district has gone on for quite a while, and it will continue. This is, again, about access. Equity is a huge portion of actually providing access for all students. Equity is what we focus on to make sure that every student gets what they need. And this year, maybe more than any others before, is a time for us to really focus on what those needs are, because I think that they will be harder for us to figure out, because they won't be with us in front of us every single day. So we'll have to figure out how we can provide the things that each child needs to be successful. Inclusionary practices along the way, these have been always super challenging and also really rewarding. And I think it's been amazing to see the kind of work that our specialists have done, that our teachers have done, that our assistants have done to make sure that people are being included in the most full educational experience they can be. We will continue to work challenging ourselves with our equity conversation to make sure that we are including every child, regardless of ability and regardless of need, how we can get them to be part of our successful community. Providing opportunity for every student, all kinds of different ways to provide opportunities. These are the kinds of things that, of course, we've worked on as part of our equity work, and we'll continue to move on providing access to opportunity. All of these kind of interplay with each other, and this is that chance for us to actually think about opportunity as a way to provide further equity for students. And then finally, understanding about what people are going through, what you're going through, how you present yourself to others and how they present themselves to you. It's a huge part of us understanding our students, our families, their needs, your colleagues and what they're doing. We have to provide space to develop an understanding of other people so that we can understand, we can actually move this thing through in equity forward. And it's, for us, I think, understanding about where people come from. And I said it last year that people are doing the very best they can every day, whether we like it or not, they're trying their best. This year, people are going to try their best, and it's maybe not always going to be the best in our own eyes. But just remember, this is really hard for everyone, and providing some grace and some patience with families, with your staff, with your colleagues, with your family, that will go a really long way for us to be able to move forward. So our guiding principles, again, access, equity, and inclusion, opportunity, and understanding. And it reminds me of this quote by Verna Myers, and you've probably seen it before, where she stated that diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. We want to make sure that every student has the opportunity to be asked to dance. And so our work will be focusing specifically on making sure that every kid has an opportunity to shine. Some of the things that we'll continue to work on, and we'll do additional professional development in this last spring and summer, our school board voted to adopt a proclamation specifically focused on anti-racism. We also will tie all of these things together with our work in equity, and we'll do some training and some practice on reducing our implicit bias during this school year. So some people have asked me, how do equity and anti-racism fit together? And for me, they fit together exceptionally well. Couple of things that are important to remember when we're looking at equity and anti-racism. So one of the core principles of equity is called the prioritization principle. And that's when you look at policy and practice, and each one of those decisions need to be examined through the question, how will this impact the most marginalized members of our community? So equity is truly about prioritizing the interests of our most marginalized. And then additionally from there, some of the questions that we will begin to ask as we move forward in the work in equity is, what cultures are being celebrated in our schools and which ones are being left out? And what rules and structures do we have in place that are implicitly biased within the school? And we've already begun some of that work with the group that was working on our students' code of conduct and how we treat behavior and the kinds of things like that. So we've been doing some work already in those. And of course, the work in anti-racism and inequity is hard because it challenges some of our own personal core notions about who we are and how we come across. And this direct confrontation principle states that there's no path to equity that does not involve direct confrontation with inequity. There's no path to racial equity that does not involve a direct confrontation with interpersonal, institutional, and structural racism. So there are lots of things that we can do when we start asking questions about that. And how do we safeguard the student experience from the board level all the way down to the classroom level? How do we build in anti-racist school district practices? What do those look like? And then how do we center achievement for all students? Something that we continue to talk about and is just out of our reach. We continue to reach for it, or to reach out for it. And the reason that we talk about these things, and they are hard, is that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. And that's something that came out of James Baldwin many years ago. And I think that really directly relates to the kind of work that we'll be engaged in this year as we start to examine ourselves, examine our practices, examine our classrooms, examine the things that we focus on. The way that we will move forward on many of these priorities, of course, is to build teams. This is not something that has to be directed from top down. We actually have seen a lot of people standing up already to become leaders in the work. There are community groups, of course, and there are groups of staff members who have been very interested in moving this forward. So a lot of this has been grassroots, and that has been wonderful to see that grow. And now we want to try to create some structure around that grassroots so we can continue to move the ball forward and produce some real change and some really meaningful experiences for all the students we serve. In the short term, of course, we are trying to focus on professional learning opportunities for all staff in equity, inclusion, anti-racism, implicit bias. There are some school groups which have already formed and will continue to form them in the schools that have not yet gotten there. And then looking at a district-wide panel or advisory board comprised of multiple people, both at the board level, because they have voted to move ahead on creating an ad hoc committee focused on anti-racism and equity, and also at the school district level and at each building level. As we move toward the midterm, we continue with professional learning. I think one of the things that you'll find this year is that continual professional learning has been built into our schedule. I think it's really important that we take as full advantage of that as possible. We will be doing reviews and already have been doing reviews of policy, of practices. I mentioned before the code of conduct, but we've also been looking specifically at board policy anytime that those happen to conflict with the principles of equity and opportunity. Starting curricular reviews of the things that we already have in place and that we need to replace, and then working and listening to our student groups and adding new things to our instructional practices that will help, again, improve the experience. Longer term, you'll notice I left the professional learning there because we have to continue to do that, reinforcing some policy changes. One of the things that sometimes we forget to do is monitor our progress. How are we doing in doing this? Looking at all of the curriculum things that we have, and each time we do an adoption, focusing some of our mind power on the culturally competent content, figuring out what's going to work and what's not going to work, looking for images that reinforce stereotypes, things like that. And the list is, of course, quite huge. There are lots of things out there that we want to do, and we have to set some priorities. And these groups, of course, will do some of those things for us. This is important for us to grow from both the ground up and from informal and formal leaders, so we can move this work into the bright light, so we can really have some great success. I'm excited about that. Now, you will notice, I hope, that much of our training has been focused on the immediate. We knew that it was going to be very important for all staff as you come back in to really focus on what's happening in a few short days. And so we did focus the vast majority of our training, of our professional development, on distance learning. We did provide distance learning playbooks for many staff, all licensed. We have some additional ones as well. we want to make sure that you have that focus because we know that that's the current immediate. But with our schedule and seeing and running student classes primarily Monday through Thursday, we have the opportunity to do professional development throughout the year on those Fridays. And some of it will be formal and some of it will be informal. We know we have book groups that have formed to read. We want to provide opportunity for that. We want to provide opportunity to have folks explore their implicit bias and issues of equity and anti-racism. So we will do those throughout the year, but we really wanted to focus your time right now on CDL because we know that that is truly what's coming very quickly. And so we wanted to make sure you got to focus on those things as you prepared for the school year. Additionally, this fall, the Newberg School District will have on the ballot a bond measure for $141 million for upgrades, repairs, replacements at all buildings. Some of the generalized things, and these are, of course, the bond will touch every building, making repairs and maintenance work, some major remodels of CTE and some science things at the high school, instructional spaces at all buildings, a major remodel of Edwards, and a replacement of Dundee Elementary. And really they fit into three primary buckets. One of them is about improving and replacing and maintaining the community's investment in our facilities. You know, it's important to remember that, you know, if you only replace one building every 10 years, it'll take you 100 years to get a building changed out. They don't quite go 100 years. And so we have to do this, not just for ourselves in the local one, but we're going to provide that opportunity. So we will see if the voters approve this moving forward. Also, forward-looking improvements. We know that as the world continues to change, the importance of STEM and CTE are critical, and we're looking at providing some opportunity for that to happen at younger and younger grade levels so kids can get more exposure to those critical ideas earlier and then grow their idea of what their future career might be. And then finally, improvements to facilities for safety, for inclusion, you know, things like making sure that we have ramps and we have powered doors that open so people who may have a physical limitation can get in easily, providing some equity in the kinds of spaces that students attend in school. So a lot of opportunity in our school bond. We'll have more information coming out about all of that to you shortly. Okay, so I wanted to highlight some of the success of the things that we were able to accomplish when everybody was pulling the rope the same way. And I think it's really valuable to reflect on how much success we all had together last year and as we got ready for this year. So we ran, of course, a lunch program. Many of our staff were involved in it who don't normally work in lunch. And then, of course, all of our food service personnel were part of that. So from March, after the shutdown, to June, we served 148,000 meals, more than 148,000. In just summertime, it was 43,000, almost 44,000 meals, for a grand total of 191,696 meals. That's from the end of March, from the shutdown, until August. So we know there is a grand need, and that is something to celebrate. The number of those meals and so many of you staff out there, I can't thank you enough for stepping in and providing that level of opportunity for kids, because we know there's a great need for students in our community. Some other little fun things. So April 9th, actually, I think was our peak day. Posts to Google Classroom by teachers. There were 2,754 posts just on April 9th. Of course, there were many days that were in those 2000s, but that was one of our peak days. And you can kind of see how over time, I've noticed that you guys have not been posting in your Google Classroom in July. I'm not sure why. Well, those numbers will go back up soon. We did deploy 3,000 plus Chromebooks in the spring. Again, many staff who may be listening today were part of that effort to get them out the door. We had more than 200 hotspots also deployed, which is pretty amazing that we got those early. You probably have seen us or heard tell of districts who still don't have hotspots for students. And it's not the best thing for us to use for internet connectivity, but it certainly provided far more than others. And so our team got those out. In fact, our tech team drove around in cars with devices to figure out which ones, we had 2 different brands, to see which one would work better at a student's or sometimes staff member's house. So they took one from Verizon and one from T-Mobile and would drive around and actually try to figure out which one worked best. So huge kudos out to our tech team. And then additionally, just Google Voice calls per day. We were somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 plus almost every day of the week throughout the springtime. So we provided Google Voice, so we'd have a way for students and families to be able to connect with you instead of routing through your school phone or calling on your personal phone. We also had celebrations of the end of the year. I know that there was a lot of sadness at one point about students missing out on this and students missing out on that. And what about the seniors and what about this? But there were so many opportunities, so many times that staff came together to do a parade for students to celebrate them and send out messages of hope. And our graduation at Newberg High School. Now, before everybody gets crazy about the social distancing in these pictures, these are all family members of each one of these people here. So they were giving these big hugs. That's why I took those pictures of our staff and or board members who were celebrating the graduation of a child or a relative. We also provided the opportunity for parents to be able to take all the photos they like, the ones that they try to sneak up down the middle and try to get in and get just the right photograph. Because of the way that our Newberg High staff built it, they were able to get out, take the pictures that they want, celebrate in the way they want, and made every kid feel super special. So it was a really wonderful experience that I got to share in, and so many of our families did too. I think everyone felt very celebrated. Sometimes groups came with team shirts. This was totally fun. They had shirts for their one graduate and they all got team shirts. And sometimes graduates came totally on their own, and they still came and celebrated their graduation. These photos, of course, are from the Catalyst graduation that happened the day before. So kudos to our secondary teams for putting together celebrations that people really stressed about, and I think we pulled them off exceptionally well. We continue to hear about how great our celebrations of our students went for us. So again, pulling on the rope, everybody together. Our goal is to create this safe, loving, supportive, inclusive environment for all students. It's something that I know we can do, and we can also do it really well. We've already seen how, I think in this springtime, again, all those things that I just showed you, Newberg, Dundee, we've got this. And I'm not calling it the new normal. I don't think you'll ever hear me call it that. If I do, I'll try to correct myself. But this is truly not the new normal. This is the current normal. And we have to make all the things that we're doing right now as normalized as possible. And that doesn't mean trying to use the metric of what it used to be like, and now we try to fit what it used to be like into the current. It means that we take this current and we make this current the very best current it can be. And I know that it's important to all of you that we serve our students well. It's important to our community. It's important to our staff, our families, our kids. And so I asked a question of a few folks, and I'm going to play a video in a second where they're going to answer this question. But I wanted them to think, when students think back to this school year right now, 2020, 2021, in 5 or 10 years, what do you want them to remember about it? I'm just going to pause for a moment and just say, if the video gets a little bit shaky, we will post this later on social media, so you'll be able to see it. Sometimes these large videos do that when we're broadcasting. So a little caveat there, but I'm going to go ahead and play the video. And I think that you'll find that everybody is on board to provide this best current normal as the best school year we can have.
When students think back to this school year 5 to 10 years from now, I want them to remember the creative, awesome activities they did with our incredible staff.
I hope they remember that we valued them as an individual, that we looked at them not just as a group of students that we needed to get through the system, but that we looked at them on a case-by-case basis and made plans for each one of them that fit their needs under these circumstances.
When students look back on the school year 5 to 10 years from now, they'll need to remember resiliency is our new reality, and we can make it better by continuing to work together.
I want students to remember that we cared for them, that we inspired them, and we provided turkey and gravy through Uber Eats.
I want them to remember 2 things that I hope they learn from this school year. 1, that nothing they do, nothing they achieve, nothing they earn, did they do by themselves. You've got to learn to serve with other people and for other people. The second thing I hope they learn is that whether you're sitting in a classroom or taking a class online, that's not the important piece. The important piece is that you are in charge of your own learning. And that starts now, this year, 2020, and for the rest of your life.
When students think back to this school year, 5 to 10 years from now, I want them to remember the year that we redesigned school and turned it into something incredible.
I want them to remember that we empowered them with the tools and the ideas and the mindset to become explorers of their own world and to really learn to love learning on their own terms outside of the four walls of a classroom.
When students think back to the school year, I want them to remember that we embraced change and we crushed it. Students, staff, and the community. Great job, Newberg.
Hola compañeros, solamente les quiero desear que tengan un feliz año. Les deseo mucha suerte y les digo que todo va a salir bien. Vamos a poder vencer todos los desafíos que nos van a poner enfrente de nosotros. Hello everybody, just want to wish you guys a great school year. I know that we're all going to come out on top and it's going to be great. We're going to beat everything that stands in front of us.
When students think back on their school year 5 to 10 years from now, I want them to remember how enthusiastic and excited their teachers were to see them for the first time in the fall.
When students think back to this school year 5 or 10 years from now, I want them to remember the grit, tenacity, and flexibility that they found within themselves to learn new things, to achieve greatness, and to improve their own lives despite all these obstacles.
I hope that in 5 years, you look back on this year as one of your best years. It was full of challenges, but also one that was full of opportunities. I also hope you look back and realize how much your families, your teachers, your school administrators, and the entire school staff love and care for you.
I want our students to remember that the power of relationships brought us together as a community.
I really want our kids to remember what it was like when they decided to choose hope over fear.
I think it'd be amazing if some of these students discovered the school isn't about jumping through hoops, but teachers open their eyes to questions and that they can uncover learning all on their own. That would be incredible.
I want our students to remember that we are here for them, that together we can overcome all these hard challenges. And the most important things are don't give up. Surround yourself by people that care about you and keep on working hard.
When students look back on this school year in the future, I hope that they remember that no matter what obstacles we face, that treating each other with kindness and respect will always be the most important.
I hope that when our students look back at this time, they have a lot of excitement and remember the courage it took to persevere and learn in new ways. I also want them to feel a deep sense of pride in all their accomplishments.
I hope that students remember all of the collaboration and creativity that they saw and experienced. But more than anything, I hope that they remember that they were surrounded by adults who loved them, who cared about them, and who did whatever it took to make sure that they were successful.
I just want students to remember when they think back 5 or 10 years from now, that despite all the challenges that we faced during this time, that we were still able to come together and support each other as a school community.
Hi. You know, in 5 or 10 years, the kids are going to really remember the relationships that you built with them. And maybe the cat that jumped on the desk in front of you. Have a good one.
When students remember this school year 5 to 10 years from now, I want them to remember how much they are loved and how this was a year that inspired them to take big risks and try new things.
I want them to remember that it was a positive experience for them and that even though we were apart, they were part of something bigger, part of a community that cared for them.
Thank you. That was a really great set of messages for everyone, and I want to thank everyone for sending in those videos for us to put those together. And then just as a final reminder before I sign off, it's important to know that I know this is challenging. This is hard for everyone. It's hard for me. I would much rather be running around on stage and waving my arms frantically like I would normally do. But there are many opportunities for us in this school year to just be amazing for every student, every family, and your colleagues. And so just a little reminder, one of my old faves, I think you remember from 2 years ago that I used the graphing data on the kinds of colors of sweaters that Mr. Rogers wore over the entire course of the TV program. But he truly was one of the greatest teachers of all time, and he did it all virtually. I know you can do this. I know we can do this. I'm excited about it. I know it will be hard. We may not always have all of the answers to all of your questions, but we will chase them down and try to get you those. It's important to remember that we're all in this together. We're going to be amazing. And I'm actually really excited about this year. So without going on too much further, I want to thank you all for being part of Newberg Public Schools. Muchísimas gracias por haber estado con nosotros hoy. It's been great to almost see you, and I hope this message finds you well, and we'll move forward and make 2020, 2021 the best school year yet.